Welcome to Ignite Your Luminescent Life, Intuitive Business Mastery and SaaS with your host, Dr. Elena Estanol. That would be me. I am really excited, delighted, and frankly, a little bit nerve-wracked to be starting this journey with all of you. And so I am really, really excited to have you all here with me. Some of you may have already had the pleasure of hearing Michael Brooks, our network founder, interview me in a candid and unscripted interview last week. And of course, if you haven't listened to that yet and you want to, or you want to make sure that you get the replays of the shows, you can sign up for that at intuitivebusinessmastery.com/radio. And that's intuitivebusinessmastery.com/radio. Now, if you would like to call in with questions and interact with me kind of towards the end of the show as I finish this presentation, you can do that. And the number to call is area code 646-716-7979. 616-716-7979. Now, Michael will also be on the line to help me troubleshoot if I need it. And hopefully I won't, and so then you might not hear from him. And but at the website, you also get to see some of the future dates of our shows. In general, it will be about every other week, but it's not exactly that way. So some days, it's going to be twice a month, but you really want to be checking the dates because it's not exactly every other week. So today, of course, I am kicking off my show by taking the microphone all to myself. And first off, of course, I want to thank you for being here today, for taking time out of your busy schedule to come listen to me, to learn, and to just share. And I'm super honored and really delighted. And of course, I would love, love, love to hear from you. I'd love to get your feedback, your insights, your questions, whether it's you calling into the show or whether it's you emailing me or asking me on my Facebook wall, wherever that might be. So my intention overall for the show is that I want to empower with as many tools as possible for you to really awaken to your divine purpose and to be able to fully express that through a profitable and transformational business. So I will be sharing, obviously, some of the things that I have learned through the years, but I will always also be bringing in some pretty amazing experts because, of course, one can't be an expert at all things. And so I am going to be bringing in some pretty amazing experts that they will be sharing with you, whether it's marketing techniques, whether that is enrollment techniques, whether that is mindset, whether that is connecting more towards your intuition and being more aligned. So whatever that might be, I'm going to be having some pretty amazing experts joining us. So please be sure that you check this out. Now, I shared that I was a little bit nerve-wracked, and that's because I'm starting off the show with one of the things that has been one of the scariest things for me to talk about openly and broadly, and that is the power of intuition. And I guess, why not, right? If I'm going to have the guts to pick up the microphone and start sharing my message, my heart and my mind, then why not start deep? I'm not much of a superficial chit-chat girl anyway, so why not? I have a friend of mine that always says, "Oh, I love you, Elena. You always have a way to make things really deep." So of course, I'm not going to be interviewing anybody else today, though, like I said, I already have some pretty amazing guests lined up in the coming episodes. But I wanted to take today, the first episode, to share with you a little bit more authentically and more vulnerably, and to kind of set the stage for all of the guests to come. So first things first, right? So why in the world would anybody that is already running 3 businesses start a radio show? Well, that's easy, because I'm crazy. Or not, because I have a really clear mission that I need to help you awaken to that divine purpose, to really empower you and give you the tools and everything that you need to be able to express that purpose in a way that is profitable and transformational, and that your business can truly be a change agent in our world. I want to inspire and empower all of the evolutionary leaders of tomorrow, because tomorrow actually starts today. I don't think that we are no longer having to wait to see if somebody else is going to step in to help us change the world. I think that it's time for all of us to basically roll up our sleeves and get to work to create the partnerships and the alliances that are going to allow us to work together, to support one another, to empower each other, to champion one another so that we can be better and more brilliant versions of ourselves, and to really have the courage to take the steps to create the world that we really want to see. So this is really about helping you claim your leadership and unleashing your full potential. Now, of course, you know that as a peak performance psychologist and an intuitive prosperity business mentor, I know a lot about a lot of things. I know a lot about a lot of things. Peak performance, psychology, physiology, neuroscience, intuition, business strategy, storytelling, marketing with heart. These are some of the things that we're going to be talking about. And I'm constantly evolving. I don't know it all. I don't pretend to know it all by any stretch of the imagination. And that is part of the reason why I want to have guests in the show that are going to be sharing some of their expertise with us. Secondly, I want to say this, and this is really important in the context of also me being a licensed psychologist, that whatever I share in this show should not be construed as counseling or therapeutic advice or replace formal support in any way, shape, or form. I want you to please consult your trained professionals that you know and that know you and that follow you. However, I'll be delighted to take your calls, to give you insights, to give you support, and to point you in the right directions. And I'm doing so as a high performance and intuitive business coach. So let's get to it, shall we? What are you going to be learning today? What am I going to be talking about today? So one of the things that I want to share is basically what exactly is intuition and how you tap into it. I'm going to be sharing a little bit about my story about why this matters so much. How does intuition actually intersect with mindset as part of an integrated whole? And then what are the 5 different ways in which your intuition actually speaks to you so that you can start recognizing that in you? I want you to also learn the difference between making good decisions and great choices and how we may feel when we are actually making them. And also, I'm going to share how your ego actually blocks you from connecting to your intuitive guidance. So I'm just going to take a quick drink of water here. Also, as a reward for you sticking with me till the end, I'm also going to give you some access to some free tools that will allow you to unlock your intuitive potential and grow your business. So one of the reasons why it feels a little nerve-wracking for me to be sharing about intuition is that I know that I'm not special, right? A lot of times people talk about, you're special, or I don't think that I am special because I am intuitive. In fact, I firmly believe that we all have the capacity to unlock this superpower. We all have it. We are all endowed with it. It is just a matter of how much we're connected to it, how much we're listening to it, and how attuned we are to it. Now, of course, after being so afraid, and I'll share why I was, about talking about intuition for such a long time, I have recognized, just like many of you, that our world is really shifting very quickly, very rapidly. Our consciousness is shifting, and we are actually craving a lot more openness, more truth, and more authenticity in our relationships, in our businesses, and in pretty much everything that we do. And so for me, it's really about finally being ready to own and claim being a divine rebel, because I've never been somebody that does things like the book. I have basically always pushed the envelope, always try to look at things from a different perspective, always try to do things from a different way and innovate and create and push and do more. So obviously I was born an incredibly intuitive person just like you were. And I actually have used my intuition pretty much my whole life, both in my personal, my clinical, and my business life. Yet I didn't always talk about it because I was incredibly, incredibly afraid. I was really, really afraid of what others may think of me, of how I would be judged, of losing my credibility, or even worse, disappointing my family. See, growing up as a kid, I quickly realized that it was not okay to be talking about my imaginary angel friends that I could see and hear, and that I couldn't be talking about the things that I just knew or sensed about people. And so for many years, I felt like there was something really, really wrong with me. People called me oversensitive, people called me crazy, people called me weird. And this really only served to highlight that sense of disconnection and feeling different from other people. So I started hiding. I stopped talking about it. But the saddest thing is that I actually stopped listening to it. I disconnected from that intuitive guidance. And it wasn't until a time where all of a sudden I really, really needed it that came back, and I reconnected it with it really strongly. And that was about around age 14. I went to Cuba to dance at the school of Alicia Alonso. So those of you that are just hearing me for the first time, in my one of my first cat lives, I was a ballerina. and so I went to Cuba to study at the school of Alicia Alonso. And I met a guy that I really liked there, and he took me to lunch to his house and met his parents, and then he invited me to dinner several days later. And the thing of it is that when I first went to his house, he took me there, so I wasn't really paying attention. And then when I needed to get to his house, I started up and I started walking, and then all of a sudden I realized I was completely lost. I had no idea how to get there. It started getting dark, and there's a lot of men that were just kind of started coming towards me, and I just got really, really, really scared. And so really what I did is I got really, really quiet and started praying. And I asked to be shown how to get to this place. And so basically I would get to the end of the block, and then I would just ask where to go. And I started really hearing very clearly just one word: right, left, straight, right, left, straight. And to my surprise, this allowed me to arrive to my destination completely unharmed. And this was the beginning for me to really recognizing that intuition is sort of that internal GPS that is guiding us step by step, moment to moment. A lot of times we think like, is this thing that is going to predict the future? And sometimes my employees think that I can predict the future, and they ask me, and that's not really what it is. It's simply your ability to be able to really be so tuned in, to be able to have a sense of what is the next step that you need to take. And so while I didn't talk about it, it did open a huge channel of wisdom and knowledge for me that has allowed me to pretty much predict even who might win at the Olympics. And that's maybe a whole other story I'll share with you at some point. Diagnose very obscure conditions and save people's lives. And every day, more and more, I see the impact of all of us being really disconnected from our intuition, and how our life experience and our world, when we're disconnected from our intuition, brings fear, lack of trust, lack of confidence, seeking answers outside of ourselves, consulting experts that take advantage of us, relinquishing that internal personal power that we have to change our lives, to heal our bodies, and to really fully step into our divine purpose. So I see the dire need in our world for more of us to wake up and come back to ourselves. to really uncloak our luminous beings, to reattune to our divine selves, and to really allow that highest self, our intuitive self, to be who is guiding our lives, who is guiding our business decisions, who is guiding what we are doing moment to moment. And of course, because I have used this throughout my life and I have taught it to my clients one-on-one, I have created what I have called the Aware Breakthrough Method. It is a 5-step process that will help you attune, connect, activate, and then rewire your intuition to really access that limitless potential. And I will share as much as I can today through the call, and then we can discuss a little bit about how you can go a little bit deeper if you're interested. So, what is intuition? And, I normally love to do this in an interactive way, but I know that it's the radio. And so, as I said, our intuition is that GPS, that internal compass that guides us moment to moment, step by step, to make the right decisions. It is the key to the lock. It is literally the light in darkness. And it is the best personal guidance and roadmap to success that we can have. Full stop. So when you are running around trying to ask a whole bunch of people or trying to learn 100 different things and you're so confused about what's the next step, the answer is not outside of you. The answer is inside of you. And I'm not necessarily saying that learning's a bad thing. I am a perpetual learner, and I'm such a nerdy gal, and I'm always reading and learning. But the idea is that ultimately knowing what is the right thing for you to do at each moment, you are the only one that have that information. And so learning to connect to that information, it is absolutely crucial for your success. It is absolutely crucial for you to unlock limitless potential. It is absolutely crucial for you to unlock unlimited abundance and success in your business. So intuition is really your connection to your higher self, to your higher purpose. And different people call it different things. And really, the word doesn't matter. I still giggle a little bit about Star Wars. How many of you out there are Star Wars fans? Because I'm a total Star Wars nerd, okay? And I just love that for such an old movie, the Force, may the Force be with you. That's exactly what they're talking about. Like, the Force is that connection, is that intuition that is guiding you. And if you learn to tap it and you learn to really connect to it, then your power is completely unlocked. So let's talk about what are the 5 different ways in which your intuition speaks to you. Now, intuition actually speaks and connects to us in multiple ways. And we all need to start learning how to identify them, how to listen to them, and then, of course, the most important and usually hardest part is having the courage to take action on the guidance that we're receiving. So how that communication happens is actually as unique as you are. So there isn't a right way and a wrong way of getting information if that's what you've been taught. And so what I want you to think about is different times in your life. And at this point, if we were a live audience, I would be asking for people to be raising hands. How many of you have had an experience where you all of a sudden just knew what was the thing that you needed to do, whether in avoiding a dangerous situation or in taking an action that was completely going to transform your life? So I'm going to give you 2 examples. The first one actually was around that time that I was in Cuba, and it was a little later, and I was sitting in a bus, and we were just basically taking the bus to go back to the hotel. And I'm sitting on the bus, waiting for the bus to get filled and then take off. And the buses line up. So as soon as one bus fills up, then the next one goes. And so I'm sitting there with my friend, and all of a sudden I hear, you need to be on that bus. And it was referring to the bus that is like across the street from us. So, and I'm thinking, what? You need to be on that bus. You need to be on that bus. And again, intuition is interesting because it kind of speaks in a very soft way, but it's persistent. It's like that little droplet of water that just keeps going and going and going and going. And so finally, I like picked up my bag and I told my friend, I need to be on that bus. And she looked at me, of course, like I was crazed, right? And she said, but that bus is going to leave after this bus. And I said, I know, but I just need to be on that bus. And I just like, grabbed my bag and I exited the bus. And of course, my friend is like completely confused. She's thinking, nutty. But she grabs her bag and follows me, which bless her for that. And so we go and we sit on the other bus, which was completely empty. And we see the first bus fill up and take off. And we're sitting there still waiting for this bus to fill out. And she is just giving me these looks of like, you are absolutely insane. I don't know what bit you, but whatever. And then, of course, the bus fills. We get to our hotel, right? And end of story, right? Or so I thought. And then I sort of start asking, so where are the people, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden what we figured out is that first bus hadn't yet arrived. And I said, what? And they arrived 3 hours later. And what happened was that something broke down in the bus and then they were stuck. And they had to wait. It was a kind of long ride and they were stuck and waiting for help. And so they arrived 3 hours later. They were fine, but of course they arrived and they were incredibly hungry and tired and, and I thought, that's interesting. That's the bus that I would have been in. Okay. So that's kind of an example of perhaps like saying you need to do something else. The other example actually was about this radio show. When Michael first contacted me and was telling me about the radio, it was like he didn't have to say a whole lot. I had just like, maybe like 2 days later, I had been thinking, I wonder what it would take to start a podcast. And then he contacted me and then he started telling me and I was like, yes. Like I just knew that was the thing that I needed to do, even though it felt really nerve-wracking. It's nothing that I've ever done before. I just knew, right? So I'm going to give you, so the examples of these two. So the first way, that was an auditory way of communication. I receive a lot of my intuitive guidance auditorily, which to me, it sort of makes sense. I was raised with a lot of music. I played the piano growing up. I've been surrounded by music. And so I get a lot of guidance auditorily. Now, the second one was more of a knowing. So it's just knowing that you need to do something or knowing a piece of information without prior knowledge of it. Okay, so there's 5 different ways in which your intuition speaks to you. The first one, and these are in no particular order, so please don't feel like one is better than the other. Okay, the first one is visual. So you get information through pictures. So you might be shown different pictures, and that, whether they are symbols or scenery, that might be a way that your intuition is speaking to you. Again, it could be auditory, where you are actually hearing prompts or hearing when I'm writing. I almost feel like sometimes I'm just taking dictation, like I'm just hearing, and it's not like the crazy like I'm hearing voices, but it's similar to them. The third one is a sensory. So you have a sense of something. This is one of my biggest and primary ways for my intuition to speak with me. And it is basically sensations in your body. So all of a sudden you might feel cold or warm, or you might feel chills, or you might feel your heart beating faster, or all of a sudden you just have this sense of this is what I need to do, and almost like your body just knows and it takes you. Okay, so that's the third one. the fourth one, it's very closely related. It has to do with feelings. So it speaks to you through feelings. And if it's feelings, it's feelings a way that you have a particular gift to receive guidance. It could also be confusing because when you have a powerful feeling guidance, it is also likely that you have empathic feelings. And this was also something that confused me deeply when I was growing up, because this is a really, really powerful way that I get guidance. And it's that it's not just that it's going to be through your feelings, but it's that you are going to be able to experience the feelings of other people. And so it is incredibly confusing initially when you don't understand it, because all of a sudden you might actually be feeling the fear, you might be feeling the anger, you might be feeling the confusion, and and so being able to develop that refinement of knowing what's your feeling and what it's a way that you are receiving information through your own feelings about how other people are doing. It's really, really powerful. Okay. And then the last, so that was the fourth one. And then the fifth one is what's called claircognizance, or just knowledge. All of a sudden knowing something without really having an idea of how that knowledge got there, or a recollection of you having learned that in any particular way. All of a sudden you just know. And a lot of people talk about intuition as inner knowing. And of course it is inner knowing. And sometimes they refer to inner knowing as just this, but I would say that inner knowing encompasses all of those things. Okay. Now, why I'm taking the time to go through all 5 of these is that it's really, really important for you to go back to your life and your experience to figure out what are the ways in which your intuition has spoken to you. It usually will speak to you in one way. It usually will speak to you in one way, especially when it's a warning sign. Whenever you are being warned or trying to keep you safe, it is usually a little bit stronger and more direct. And when it is basically trying to guide you towards something, it tends to be a little bit more subtle, and sometimes it's a little harder to perceive. So I just want you to kind of go back through your life, start writing down and recognize, how have I been warned when there was danger? How have I known that this was the right decision? How did you know that marrying your wife or husband or being with your partner was the right thing? How did you know that moving from one place to the other was the right thing? And a lot of times we have a sense of something, and then our minds kind of muck it up. And this is kind of moving on to our third point. Our minds kind of muck it up, and then we end up doing something that we didn't feel like it's the thing that we needed to do. And then we have a negative consequence. And so that is also an important piece of you being able to connect and learning, because that's also telling you, when you listen, this is what happens. When you don't listen, then you're kind of playing the shoulda, coulda, woulda game, and it sucks. So I'm going to continue on, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about how it intersects with mindset, but I'm just going to take a moment for any of you that have joined us, in the last little bit, that if you might want to call in and have some questions, that you can call us in. You can call in at 646-716-7979, and I will be happy to take your questions. 646-716-7979. If you would like to get a replay, then you could just go to intuitivebusinessmastery.com/radio and just register there, and I'll be sure that I send you the link for the replay. So how does intuition intersect with mindset? And I believe that mindset and intuition work as an integrated whole. I was really, really afraid of sharing this because of course, I am a peak performance psychologist. I have a PhD. I've been in school for 17 years. both my parents are physicians, and so I was trained through very rigorous scientific method. And so to all of a sudden be talking about something that a lot of people have considered to be woo-woo, like one of my friends says, it's so woo-woo, then it felt scary. Yet now I know that this is actually what matters most. There is a quote that I'm sure I'm just going to butcher, but it's attributed to Einstein, and it says, "We have empowered the servant, which is the mind, and then have discredited the master, which is our intuition or our heart." And that in order to achieve true success, excellent meaning, and purpose, then we actually need to reverse that equation. Now, all of the research that Heart Math Institute is doing, it is actually proving this very thing, that our hearts have a greater source of knowledge, wisdom, and power than our minds do. And that ultimately our minds, for as powerful as they are, and they totally are, and I'll be talking a bunch about that, our minds should actually be the servant. I think a little bit about like the mind should be like the executive assistant, and then the heart should be the CEO rather than the other way around. Right? And so our world has kind of taught us to revere the mind and dismiss the heart, to dismiss all of these other things that we think are woo-woo. And the reality is that we have now become multisensory beings. It is required for the evolution of our species and the evolution of our planet that we now have become multisensory beings. And that means that we are constantly upgrading and receiving information through all kinds of channels. It's been proven now that we are but a combination of a whole bunch of energy particles, and that it is in fact energy that moves us and that moves our world. And so when we recognize that our intuition and our heart and our body has the greatest source of wisdom, and start trusting it, and then using our mind to support it and use the strategic pieces to actually make it go, then that's really when we completely blow up. Now, our mind is incredibly powerful, and we know this, but it is also ruled by our egos. And our egos have only one job, and that is to keep us safe, which means that our ego dislikes change, dislikes growth, dislikes discomfort, and likes to use fear to keep you away from the very things that you need to do to succeed. Now, I just want to let you know that if you're calling in, I love that you are here, and I'm just I want to acknowledge you that you're here, and then when I have the time to take questions, and I will take your questions, okay? So because our ego dislikes change and growth, we actually need to be rebelling. Like, we need to take a stance for love, for joy, for compassion, for our highest selves, and to really have a rebellion against our ego and all of the fears that it brings to keep us small. Because ultimately, and I think that this is just such a brilliant quote, that our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate, right? But that we are brilliant with beyond belief. So when we think about making choices, so I'm going to move on to making good and great choices. There's so much more to go into when it comes to intuition and how it intersects with mindset, because we are integrated beings. And of course, when we are working together, we are incredibly powerful. However, I really want to talk a little bit about the difference between good decisions and great choices, and how we may feel when we make them. Because actually, great choices are both really inspiring and scary as shit. they actually cause your intuition to lit up, to sing, to dance. And it's also going to cause your ego to start screaming at the top of its lungs and to flood your entire body with fear. And so when it comes to intuition, a lot of times what I hear is that it has been oversimplified by saying like, well, if you feel good about it, then it's a yes. And if you feel bad, then it's a no. And I believe that if you actually go by this philosophy, then you're dooming yourself. You're dooming yourself to keeping yourself small. You're dooming yourself to never doing anything greater or bigger than what you're already doing, and to never really getting to experience or unlock your full potential. Because as long as you're feeling good, you're feeling comfortable, right? And as long as you're catering to comfort, there's not going to be any significant change. We change by being stretched. When we are stretching, it's uncomfortable. It is downright painful. And I can tell you this, even though people think that I'm one of the most flexible people in the world, it is still painful to stretch. And the only way that we're going to be growing and we're going to be unlocking our potential is to start learning to get comfortable in the discomfort, to start getting comfortable in that stretch, right? So when you are in the process of making some choices about, should I do this or should I do that? Should I start this program? Should I do this program? Should I join? Should I not join? These are kind of things that kind of go through our, should I hire this person? Should I not hire this person, right? Like these are the kinds of things that go through our minds, especially as leaders and entrepreneurs and business owners. I really want you to really kind of tune into your body and to recognize that when fear comes up, that might actually be the beginning of a great choice, right? That when you're feeling fear, that might be the beginning of a great choice. So I would like for you to think about fear as a 2-year-old. And what do 2-year-olds like to do? They love to throw tantrums, right? So bring that 2-year-old that's throwing a tantrum, sit them on your lap, and ask them, what are you afraid of? What would you need? Right? What happens to a 2-year-old when you just ignore it and you're like, it's fine, I'm just going to ignore it? Yeah, it gets louder and it starts kicking and screaming and pounding, right? And then what happens when you just pick them up and you're like, okay, I see you, I hear you, what's happening? And then they tell you, well, blah, 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 right? Do the same thing with your fear. And then ask, is this true? I'm afraid that I'm going to be unsafe. I'm afraid that people are not going to like me. I'm afraid that people are going to disown me or stop talking to me. I mean, these are some of the fears that I think come up for all of us. I know that before I started doing some of the stuff, I had a great, great fear of visibility. And it was a lot about safety. And it was a lot about being judged and not being liked and being cut off. And so these are big fears for all of us. But then being able to ask, like, is that really true? And the answer is usually no. Because if your intuition is actually keeping you from something that is scary, it's actually going to say, and it's very direct. And you probably will have experienced that. And that when it's like, you will notice that even though there's like fear, it is expansive. There's a very, very fine line. And this is kind of the psychologist coming in between excitement and fear. They're all part of the same continuum. And in fact, if we were putting some physiological measures, skin conductance and heart rate monitors and blood pressure and all of those kinds of things, we might not actually see very different physiological reactions. And we might even claim that the only difference between fear and excitement is our evaluation and our interpretation of the sensations and our interpretation of the situation. And then, of course, all of the stories that we love to weave in and overlay to make them true, right? So the great choices, just like today, this radio show, it's going to feel exciting. It's going to feel expansive. I have a friend that says she has a whir. I get butterflies, right? And you can say it's scary, or you could say it's exciting, and it's all part of the same continuum. So the great choices are often the most uncomfortable ones. And it is when you're feeling that discomfort that's usually when you need to say yes to yourself, because that is usually when you will have an opportunity to truly grow and to truly stretch as a human being. Now, the fifth way, the fifth point, how our ego blocks you from connecting to your intuitive guidance. And you might actually have a sense of this already. But again, as I was saying, our ego actually is always trying to maintain homeostasis, right? Like keeping us safe, keeping us all in this nice little bubble of safety and comfort, keeping everything the same. And so really, our ego creates blockages. And it is done either by creating filters and diversions that actually block us from receiving the correct guidance. So we are actually receiving wrong guidance. And it is because it's being filtered by our ego. So we are hearing what we want to hear and not what we truly need to be hearing. It does it so by creating distractions that detracts us from our original purpose and our mission, right? And it's basically saying like, I need to do this, and you're like, oh yeah, but now there's this shiny thing, and here's a new thing that I want to do, and I need to clean up, and I need to make cookies, and oh, I'm going to check Facebook, right? And so notice how much of that is showing up. And those things may be an indication of like the third way, which we kind of talked a little bit about, and there's like so deep to go into, which is our ego prevents us and blocks us from intuition by flooding us with fear. Because our brains are basically wired to pay attention to scary things. This is part of our survival DNA, right? We needed to remember where the saber-toothed tiger appeared last. We needed to remember where that bear attacked, right? In order for us to really, truly survive and stay alive. However, that wiring has continued. Our brains are literally like Velcro for negative things and like Teflon for positive things. And this is the reason why it is so difficult to stay optimistic and positive, because our brains are already wired to be remembering some of the negative stuff. Our society reinforces it a whole bunch, and then we do too, because we talk about it over and over and over. And instead, we don't really talk about our successes. We tend to criticize other people that talk about their successes. And this is really what we should all be doing. We should be talking about our successes. We should be celebrating. We should be talking about it, writing about it. Because the more that we do that, the more we rewire success into our DNA. Anyhow, I diverted a little bit, but so fear is the biggest blockage. And while I don't have, all of the time to be able to go super deep into all of this stuff, I want you to really recognize that when you are feeling some of the fear, some of the distraction, to be able to have a way for you to recognize like, who is this serving? Is this serving me, my highest self, my highest purpose? Or is this actually just serving my ego to keep me small? So, of course, this is as much as I can in this little bit of time. And this is the first time, I mean, I shared this a couple weeks ago. And when I did, and I shared it with a small group, I was encouraged by many people to create courses, retreats, workshops around this topic to really help people go a lot deeper on this, to really connect and know what are all of the 5 steps that you need to take to uncover all of this stuff and really go deep and really use it on day to day in your business and in your life. However, I've only used it with one-on-one clients. And so the feedback that I got really encouraged me to share with you today a little bit more broadly. So if you're interested in going deeper, I'd love to hear from you. If you're interested in potentially going deeper and having a course so that we can really guide you, shoot me an email at elena@intuitivebusinessmastery.com. elena@intuitivebusinessmastery.com. Alternatively, you could also go to our website at intuitivebusinessmastery.com/free, and you can claim the 6 secrets to a peak intuitive mindset, or any other of the gifts. I have a ton of gifts there for you. So you can go to intuitivebusinessmastery.com/free and download as many gifts as you would like. Now, I am going to go to the phones now and start taking callers, taking questions, and see if I can clarify some things. I know that I may have skipped over or gone a little bit fast. And again, that number, if you want to call in, is 646-716-7979, 646-716-7979. And I am going to take the first caller, and this is area code 970 and ending in 2590. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
Hi, Elena. I'm good. How are you?
Great. How can I, do you have a question? Do you have a comment?
Yeah, I had a question.
Great.
So, I as a coach and counselor myself, I totally utilize intuition, tap into it all the time. But, occasionally you have a struggle where there's a dance between, or like a fine line between really hearing or feeling the intuition right and just like being confused. So in those moments when you're like kind of walking that and dancing that fine line, what kind of a suggestion do you have to kind of get it going one way or the other, so you feel like I've got this, that sense of, okay, this is what intuition's trying to say? Because as you're saying, like what you just kind of spun off of with the fears, you dive into the comfort. That feels right, or the discomfort. Ooh, that doesn't feel right, so it is right.
Yeah. So is that kind of what you were referring to? Because I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you're describing as that fine line, or when it's feeling confusing.
For me personally, I'm right now going through a lot of stuff around vulnerability, especially with the males that I work with, male teenagers, and just like over the 16-year career, what I've seen is that there's a bigger, tougher, stronger mask or shield up around guys, and not being able to share their emotions and go there with intuition. Yet I go there all the time. Like I live there.
That's awesome.
In that place. So it's like I really see a massive disconnect with guys. And for me, I'm walking this fine line of, well, I'll be so out of place if I really embrace my own vulnerability and sharing and showing feelings, emotions, and just kind of being like the dude that just shatters the status quo versus like, that's the thing to do, dude, go for it.
Oh, okay. I love Donovan. I love that you've shared this. It's beautiful, and it actually opens up in deeper ways. And if I don't answer your question, just bring me back to it, okay? Because there's something what you share that I think it's like so rich. And I'm trying to think about where I want to start. So what I'm hearing, there's two pieces of what I'm hearing, is that you actually have a clear sense of what you need to do. But your mind, it's also going like, are you freaking nuts? Like, this is totally going against everything that you've been taught, how we know societally how males need to be, like it could feel a little bit like social suicide, right? And so, and this is where, when we are actually being asked to do something that it's really going against the grain of stuff, I think that that's when the biggest resistances come up. And I kind of shared, like, this was scary for me because even being female, right? Like, talking about intuition just so openly, being a psychologist felt really scary. And I've now recognized that most of the time when those fears come up so strongly are because, they have to do with safety, right? Like, we're tribal people. We want to be accepted and we want to be part of the group. And for all of a sudden to do something that is like totally like outside of what that norm is, it'd be social suicide, right? And yet you have this very strong sense that that's part of what you do, which this tells me just how tuned in you are to your intuition, because that's actually part of the work that all men need to do. We are moving into, and so this is kind of the second part of what you're bringing up. We're moving into this new world where we all need to embrace that feminine energy and that intuitive way of being so much more. And in some ways, like, it kind of feels like it's very pro women, like, oh, like divine feminine and all the stuff. And in fact, this is actually one of the reasons why I have been so staunch at saying that I don't just work with women, that I like working with males and women, and men and women, because I feel like in some ways, like, it feels like really wonderful for women to be like, yes, it's time for the divine feminine to walk in. But then for me, it's like, and then the men are actually the ones that are left going like, so what the fuck do I do now? Right? Like, so if I can't be the man that I've been raised to be and how I need to be, then how do I fit into this new paradigm? And, what is my role and how do I need to be? And I feel like that part of that is that both men and women, need to be really connecting and embracing that feminine, to be able to be vulnerable and recognize that vulnerability is actually strength, right? And that being able to connect to your intuition is actually about being able to connect to the force and become more powerful. And for the power to come from a true source of power, that it's not about disempowering others, but that it is like truly about rising as leaders that are serving and inspiring and uplifting other people. So it was kind of a bigger thing. And so from what I'm hearing, and please tell me if I'm hearing you correctly, I don't know that it's necessarily a confusing thing. I think that it's just about like recognizing that it is part of what you need to do, and then kind of figuring out, how do I bridge the gap then from what I know where I need to be to where I'm at and where the men and the young men that I work with are. Am I?
Yeah. So I guess initially when you start out, I'm like, no, I am really walking and dancing a line, and I'm not so certain of which way to go.
Okay.
And I guess a piece of it is because as a communicator, sometimes you just know you're missing the mark by a mile. And sometimes that's what I feel like when I'm making any kind of move in that direction of sharing the vulnerability. It is really like that. Like, where are you coming from, dude? Like, you're just totally either creeping us out, scaring us, freaking us out, or just just missing the mark, and you can almost hear the crickets chirping. And then when you were talking about the new paradigm, I thought about that the women's liberation was very simple. Like the masculine piece was correlated with money. So you have a super easy incentive, because if you're in the 50s and being, mistreated, then that's your, financial freedom is your ticket to escaping that terrible situation. But I feel like what you're talking about, this embracing the feminine side, and this is where we need to go, but it feels like that's leaving the dudes behind. I really feel like for that total integration, men need to do what women did back in the day with the women's movement. But men need to do it instead of embracing the masculinity to become integrated. They are the ones that need to embrace the femininity.
Correct.
And then they're integrated. So then you got both males and females integrated, but we got to do a totally different thing to get there.
Correct.
Than what women did to get integrated.
You're absolutely correct. You're totally right on. And so I'm looking at the clock, because there's like 3 minutes left, and like the show actually will cut us off. So so we might even need to take this discussion offline and talk more about it, because I think it's like so rich. But I totally agree with you. And I just kind of wanted to speak a little bit briefly to the part that you said, well, I'm kind of walking this line where I'm seeing crickets. And that you're actually bringing it to the results and the impact. And so there's a little step in there. So one is making the decision of like, what's the right thing to do versus not the right thing to do. Do you see what I'm saying? The second is then figuring out, then once you made that decision, then what is going to be the best way for you to take action on that decision or speak about that so that it is well received. So it may not have to do, the outcome may not actually have to do with you making the wrong decision. It may actually have more to do with the messaging or the way that you're going about creating that outcome. Does that make sense? Because you sounded pretty clear about, even though you're like, meh, but you still sounded pretty clear about it.
I am. I really am.
Yeah. I'm so excited and so delighted that you actually joined us and you called in, and I'm like excited to talk more about this, because I think that this is a really, really, really big thing, and something that is super close to my heart, because I feel like men just need that much more tenderness and that much more community.
90 seconds.
So it's telling me 90 seconds before the show is over. So I just really, really appreciate you calling in, and the rest of you joining us. If you want to, again, get the replay, you can go to www.intuitivebusinessmastery.com/radio. And you can also, if you're interested in going deeper and learning more about this, and maybe putting, for me to put a course together, just send me an email at elena@intuitivebusinessmastery.com. So until then, defy the ordinary, become extraordinary. Wishing you love, light, and brilliant success.
I can do anything. I can reach any goal today. I can do what I want. I can be what I want to be.